Manchester United were beaten 3-0 by Manchester City at the Etihad Stadium in a game which, let's be honest guys, it wasn't really close. I believe Pep Guardiola tactically outsmarted Amorim in every single way possible, and he exposed the flaws in Amorim's system. Yes, Manchester United on paper towards the end of the game improved their XG, improved their performance, but you could argue that was after Manchester City were 3-0 up and stopped playing. So on today's analysis, we are going to look once again at Manchester United and Ruben Amorim's system, find out what and how Pep Guardiola exploited the system, exploited the two-man midfield, and also we're going to talk about how Pep Guardiola stifled not only Lenny Euro but Luke Shaw. He stifled the right and left centre-back in our system, stopped them from being aggressive, stopped them from jumping into the midfield to help. Pep Guardiola truly, in my humble opinion, gave Ruben Amorim a masterclass, guys. Now, while there were individual mistakes such as Bruno Fernandes forgetting or not being able to pick up a man, not following his runner, whether it was Luke Shaw getting out-muscled and outpaced by Haaland, or whether it was Luke Shaw just losing the ball for the third goal, I have to be clear and say, yes, there were individual errors that, let's be honest, yes, the manager chooses the players, but the manager cannot be fully accounted or fully accountable for individual errors. So yes, there were individual errors in this game. But for me, I want to talk about how Manchester United set up with the two-man midfield, how I believe Man City countered that two-man midfield, and how I believe Manchester City stopped us from playing our game. One of the first things I really want to establish and talk about is the fact that we routinely play with 6, sometimes even 7 defensive players on the pitch. And now let's think about that for a moment. You have 11 players on the field, and most teams who play with a 4-3-3 formation, for instance, play with 4 defenders and maybe a defensive midfielder at the base. Thus 5 defensive players. Manchester United, especially last season under Amorim, routinely played with a back 5 of defenders. In my humble opinion, for the system to truly work, for us to get the best out of the wing backs, we have to play attacking players at wing back. It's no secrecy that we don't score enough goals here at Manchester United, and one of the reasons is because we don't have enough attacking players on the pitch. We play with the back 3, then we play Mazraoui as right wing back, and often Dalot, or in this instance Dorgu, at left wing back. Those are 5 defensive minded players, as well as a DM in Ugarte. 6 out of the 10 outfield players are defenders, are defensive minded players. Only 4 are attackers, whereas for Man City, at least 5 of the outfield players were attack-minded players. If we want to score more goals, we need to be more brave. Our manager needs to play attacking players at wing-back. It is not just good playing loads of defenders. We've seen that even with playing 5 at the back, 5 defenders at the back, people, we still concede goals. For me, defending isn't just numbers. Defending is system-based. Defending is structural, and we simply cannot get this right. So let's just have a quick look at the system. As you know, we play 2 midfielders, 2 10s, and a striker. That is clear. That is a system we play with 3 at the back, 2 wing backs. That is fine. On this channel, we also spoke about the 2-man midfield and how we can use the 10s to shore up that midfield when the 2 10s drop deep, overcrowd the area, and that was somewhat successful against Arsenal. So one thing that we can do to shore up the midfield, and one thing we have done, is condense the midfield by making our 10s drop deeper. And I believe this is what the manager wants. When we condense the space, it is harder for us to be beaten. However, as you can see, once we play expansive football, there is a big gap. There is a big gap. And so we have to decide, when we play expansive football, as you guys can see, the two midfielders get exposed. If we don't play expansive football, we can drop deep and we can overcrowd the midfield, as you can see here. The question is, we need to play expansive football. How do you score goals if you do not play expansively? But if we play expansively, we will vacate these two players and leave them alone in the midfield. If Ahmad, Sesko and Mbeumo expand and occupy the front four, we will leave Bruno and Ugarte in the midfield by themselves to face three other midfielders. That is an issue, guys. That is the issue. How do we combat that? Especially now, given the fact that everybody knows how we play. Everybody knows how we play and everybody knows how to attack that weakness in our game. And everybody openly talks about how to beat us. How do we protect this part of the pitch? That is the issue, or at least one of the issues that Ruben Amorim has to resolve. So that is how we set up against Man City, which is quite normal. We usually set up that way anyway. Of course, when we play with Cunha up front, the midfield three is more fluid. But with Sesko, the target man, that is more Amorim's system. Amorim played with Gyökeres. So I'd assume, or I'd expect us to be more in line with what Amorim wants to do now with a target man up front. The issue is, Man City knew exactly how we play, and they knew how to play against us. First and foremost, as you can see, Manchester City's midfield three routinely outnumbered our midfield two. Not only that, one thing I noticed, guys, and I'm going to show you the screenshots, I'm going to show you the game shots to prove it, is that Pep Guardiola chose to occupy Luke Shaw and Lenny Euro. Why? Why did he choose to have a man occupy Shaw and a man occupy Lenny Euro? And often, dalot wasn't the one who was occupied. Dalot was left free. The main reason why Pep Guardiola chose to occupy both Luke Shaw and Lenny Euro is that because in this system, these are the two that push up into midfield. These are the two players that are tasked with closing down the space and being aggressive and jumping in midfield and attacking your man, really. But if you can get a player on these two, it stops them from doing exactly just that. They now have to stay here. They can't jump into this space. And this space here, especially for the first goal, was occupied by Doku. This was a tactic that Manchester City used a lot. They occupied Lenny Euro and Luke Shaw. That's one thing they did. Secondly, Manchester City overloaded Man United down the wings. They knew that there was space here to exploit. So at any given time, on any given wing, you'd have Luke Shaw and Dorgu, but then you have the Man City right back here, attacking midfielder here, and another midfielder here, right? You would sometimes have 2 against 3, sometimes have 3 against 4. Manchester City overloaded the wide areas because they highlighted that was weakness. And not only did they overload the wide areas, that was their starting point. They started by overloading the wide areas and drifting infield. So starting out here, wide, creating overload here, only to then drift in the midfield. Man City did this time and time again. Now, let's talk about the lead up to the first goal. As you can see on screen, Luke Shaw is occupied. Luke Shaw can't go anywhere. That attacker is occupying Luke Shaw. And as you can see, where Lenny Euro is standing, Erling Haaland has decided to occupy Lenny Euro. That's not a mistake. There's a reason for that. Man City want to pin those two players back, our right and left centre back, which means they can't attack the space that Doku is now standing in. Luke Shaw wants to attack that space. He cannot because he's marking a player. So this is an issue. This is something that Pep did a few times. This goal is going to be scored because Doku is standing right between the lines, and neither Ahmad, I guess he's got his eyes on number 45. You have Ugarte, who has his eyes on the ball, the player with the ball. You got Bruno, who can see Phil Foden with the ball, and you have Sesko also in the shot. Phil Foden is Bruno's man, right? And as the move unfolds, let's see what happens. Now, Doku has the ball. He is between the lines. It's not the worst situation that Man United are in. We can actually handle the situation from here. But it is also a failure in the system because Dogu can't really close him down because Dorgu's mind is on Man City's right back who is in space. So Dorgu can't really close Doku down. The space between dalot and Luke Shaw is quite big as well. And even in this situation, you could argue Doku shouldn't be able to jinx past two players like this. But this is football. It's happened. And as you can see from this screenshot, you have Bruno who should be looking over his shoulder, should be aware of where Phil Foden is. The problem is Bruno's not defensive minded. He's not. He's an attacking player. He's a player who for the past 4 years, at least at Manchester United, has had no defensive responsibilities. He's been able to roam around the pitch and essentially play wherever he wants to play. Bruno Fernandes has been a major asset for this football club, but the way he plays, the lack of responsibility, the lack of discipline in his game that he's always had, is now slowly becoming a liability. In this situation, it doesn't look that bad. You have at least 7 Manchester United players in the box against only 4 City players. We should be able to handle this situation very easily. Very easily. But somehow City still score from this situation. Now, and again, this is the build up to the second goal. As you can see, once again, who is being occupied, guys? You have Lenny Euro on the right hand side there being occupied, and you have Luke Shaw being occupied. This is not an accident. Dalot once again is free. They don't want our left and right centre back to jump in the midfield, close any space down, to win any tackles. They want those two players to be pinned back in order to create space between the lines for them to play in. This is a deliberate tactic by Pep Guardiola, and we must understand this. For me, I believe the manager should have responded to this and made some sort of tactical change, but unfortunately, he's come out and he said he doesn't change and he doesn't want to change. I will leave it up to you guys to make up your own mind. Now, in this shot, I'm going to be totally honest. I don't think there's a reason for Haaland to win the ball here. I don't think he should. He's tightly sandwiched between Luke Shaw and Dalot. We should be making it as uncomfortable as possible. Even put your arm across Haaland. Put your arm across Haaland if you have to. The fact that Luke Shaw was not only outpaced by Haaland, but outmuscled by Haaland is a concern. And of course, as we know, Haaland, prolific striker, arguably one of the best strikers in the world. He's not going to miss this opportunity, and he slots it away perfectly. So, as you guys can see, not only did Manchester City outmaneuver us and overcrowd the midfield at times with their 3-man midfield, they also use a deliberate tactic to pin our right and left centre back in order to stop them essentially from driving into this space, into these spaces, which Lenny Euro does really well. We weren't able to do that because they were occupied and always occupied. Our 3-man was Dalot. Out of the 3 on the ball, Lenny Euro and Luke Shaw, if I'm going to be honest, are slightly better than Dalot on the ball. So these 2 are the 2 that you want to pin back. Man City did that perfectly for at least the first 2 goals. That's one of the reasons why Man City won the game today. Not only did they, like a lot of teams, figure out the fact that you only have 2 people in the midfield, we can overcrowd them. They also figured out a way to nullify our centre-backs from covering the space, from driving into the midfield. I honestly thought Manchester City were there for the taking today. Yes, Pep Guardiola, in my opinion, tactically outsmarted, outclassed Ruben Amorim. However, I do want Ruben Amorim to be more positive. I do want Ruben Amorim to start more offensive players, attacking players at wing back. There are clear issues with this system, with his approach, with his philosophy. However, the manager has said time and time again that he won't change at all until he wants to. We need a manager who is adaptable, who is flexible, who can see the flaws and can make the changes in game. In my opinion, this game was there for the taking. Man City were there for the taking. They were on poor form. They haven't been playing well at all, and we just missed a big opportunity. Going forward, guys, I really fear for Amorim. I really hope he somehow manages to change this around, somehow manages to adapt his system a little bit towards the players. I think he really does need to sort out the Bruno Fernandes issue in midfield. He is not a double pivot player. He doesn't have the defensive nous. He doesn't have that brain that forces him to check his mirrors. He's not proactive defensively. He's an attack-minded player. And I'm not sure Ugarte is the right fit for him. I'm also concerned that Luke Shaw, who spent 10, 11 years now at the club, still starts for Manchester United. And he was joint responsible for that goal we conceded in the Europa League final. And when he came back from injury, and he single-handedly was at fault for us conceding a few goals towards the end of last season as well. So I'm surprised and I fear for Amorim. I think Amorim needs to go away, have a think, maybe adapt a little bit towards the players. Maybe. You might disagree, guys, but I think Amorim needs to be careful now. I do believe he can still turn it around, but I do believe he needs to make some serious changes. How many players have improved under this manager? How many players do you see or have you seen get better under Ruben Amorim? That's the question, guys. Let me know your thoughts on the game. Let me know your thoughts on the tactical analysis. Give me your opinions. Let me know how you thought the game went, what mistakes were made tactically. Don't forget, I haven't explained everything. I've only just explained a few points. So let me know your thoughts, guys, on the game. Please comment below, start a conversation. Don't forget to subscribe if you are new, like the video and share. And I will see you guys next time.